The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
All right, and we're live, and we're back on the Bill DeMott Experience, and we have a great interview coming up. But as always, I want to do my business right out of the gate, and I want to get everybody in on this Amazon. I'm a big fan of Amazon, and not only do I shop through the Bill DeMott Experience webpage, I may be its biggest customer. And that's because Amazon has almost everything I need without ever leaving the house. I do all my work out of the house now, and I never have to leave the house. And I can get almost everything I order within free 2-day shipping because I'm an Amazon Prime member. There's a link for that on my webpage too. You support a free show. You support my show by clicking on the Amazon banner at BillDeMottExperience.com. Being a Prime member means you almost never have to worry about delivery charges. And you get free music streams, free book rentals, amazing library of movies and TV shows with new original programming added all the time. Also through my Amazon page. So go to the BillDeMottExperience.com, click on Amazon, tell them Bill sent you. I say all the time, Amazon, call me, we'll do business. I get all my little things you see behind me and my tidbits, and I say it all the time. I order most of my Bill DeMott Experience things I use through there now. So click on Amazon, tell them Bill sent you. Amazon and Bill are doing big business. That's the big stock news this week. I always say that jokingly because I don't think Amazon will ever call me. But if they do, tell them you heard about it, BillDeMottExperience.com. So let's get right into it. You see on the bottom of the screen, I have Paranormal Research Society. And I want to preface that by it's Boulder County Paranormal Research Society. And my guest is Richard Estep. Am I saying that right, Richard?
Estep actually is the way it's said, yeah.
And Richard, first of all, welcome to the Bill DeMott Experience. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Bill. It's a privilege and a pleasure.
Well, I always say things are funny, and I don't mean them funny like in a laughing way. Steve and I were going through some things, and it came across paranormal. And sometimes when people hear, I always say ghost hunters and things like that. But I had an experience years ago in England. We were on tour, and I forget the name of the hotel, but it actually spooked about 13 grown men and women that I highly regard as adults and wouldn't just be running around in the middle of the night scared to death. So, tell me a little bit about the society and then tell me what you've been up to.
Well, I'd be happy to, Bill, but hang on. You're talking about a bunch of wrestlers, right? A bunch of American wrestlers? This story I've got to hear before we go any further.
Okay. So I don't remember where exactly we were. We were outside of London. And when we checked in, it was a beautiful hotel. And it had a bar downstairs and all these things. But when we checked in, the kind people did let us know that there's stories of it being haunted. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of grown wrestlers, we can't listen to that. So nonetheless, throughout the night, and there's some of us were enjoying a cold Coca-Cola in the bar. Two of the girls had come down because when they came out of the shower, something was written on the mirror, and you kind of chalk that up to wrestling ribs and people having a little bit of fun.
Sure.
But then one of the guys came down and said his TV kept going off and on. He went in the shower with the TV off, and he's in the shower and the TV came on. He got out of the shower, shut it off. He got back in, it came on. So it was little things like that. And then everybody started to congregate in the lobby. And we literally had at one point a bunch of people who would not go back to their rooms and spent the night in the lobby, fear of the unknown. So I say to you, what's up with that?
The writing on the mirror is pretty cool, but we have a bunch of guys whose job it is to basically throw each other around and are pretty fearless, and you have them all hiding out in the lobby because of something that happened in one of the hotel rooms.
And not afraid to say it either.
I think that's pretty awesome. So what's your theory on what happened, Bill?
Well, I have to be honest. I wasn't one of the guys. But when I heard more than one story, you kind of do the old, look over your shoulder to make sure that nothing's going to happen. And I have to be honest, I've seen a few shows that, because it has to pique your interest. I think for me, it piques my interest when you have these shows, and I know they have a number of shows out now, and stars have seen ghosts, and, celebrities have seen ghosts. And I go, from the entertainment business, I'm always skeptical. Mm-hmm. But I don't doubt it, because there's always things, right? There's always something that sends a message somehow. And that's why I go right to you. You're the expert. I mean, before we get into it, I mean, you have 5 books. Is that correct?
Right now I'm working on number 6. So yeah.
Number 6. So I mean, you're the expert, and this is where my interest is peaked, because if someone's going to answer it, I'm going to come to you. Yeah. So I guess I asked the same question. What do you make of this?
First thing my first instinct would be exactly what you said. It's somebody with a great sense of humor, that is trying to punk or prank you guys. That would be my first thought. But would it be somebody with access to that room? Would it be somebody that could somehow have gotten in,
Right.
You have to ask those kind of questions first. And there are so many normal answers or natural answers that have to be ruled out before you go anywhere near a paranormal one, But also, when they told you the room was haunted, the folks in there were kind of predisposed to misinterpreting everything that went on, right? There's a creaky floorboard in my haunted room. That's not a creaky floorboard, is it? That's the soft footfall of a long dead former inhabitant, especially when it's dark. And we've all seen those movies.
Right.
And it's kind of fun to be that way too. So I would leap to a natural explanation first, and then see if we can start ruling stuff out.
Well, all I knew was you had a bunch of pretty well-built men who could handle themselves, literally sitting in the lobby going, "I'm not going back." So that's
not
enough
something you can punch or kick, is it, or put into a grapple?
Yeah, if you couldn't put a chokehold on it, you have to take it pretty serious. And the lobby was full that night of grown men and women.
We're just hanging out. That's all. We like the lobby.
Right.
It's good atmosphere
down
here.
We just wanted to be together.
Yeah. Another Coca-Cola? Yeah.
So you just came back from Atlanta, right?
Right.
So tell me about that trip.
Well, I go to Dragon Con, which is it's kind of like Comic-Con, but better in my book. It's the big science fiction convention out there for fans of everything from The Walking Dead, superheroes, science fiction. And they have a pretty healthy paranormal track run by a guy called Nick Fort. And they get people in who talk about diverse stuff like ghosts, paranormal. Couple of Bigfoot hunters were out there also.
Right.
Ufologists, people that are heavily into the UFO aspect of things, and we basically kind of get together, do some lectures, talk about the state of the profession, if you will, and get to meet people that are interested and sign a few books. It was great fun.
I mean, now you always say it. Hopefully it doesn't come out the way it's not. This is big business.
It is.
This is big business. Now I'm not, and you see it all the time. You mentioned UFOs and things like that, but now with The Walking Dead and the what is it, Battleship that's out there, and some of these other shows that are out there. I mean, can I expect? I kind of say this with a little bit of humor, but is this the direction that we're going for a reason? I'm out on the Bigfoot thing. I'm just saying that right now.
Sure.
I've been with the Big Show for 20 years, and he's got the biggest foot I've ever seen. So it would take a lot to get me. But I say that now because I'm not in the woods by myself. But
yeah, things change differently after dark. It is big business, and one thing that I always look for when I'm investigating claims of the paranormal, being a firefighter and a paramedic, I work with a lot of cops, and I've learned a few things about investigation over the years. And they always say who gains, who benefits. And so when you're investigating any kind of claim, you look at who benefits. So the folks that come to me and say, look, my house is haunted. I really don't want any publicity here. Can you keep this on the down low? Can you not talk to my neighbors? Can you not ask awkward questions? Because we don't want to be that house on the block, That impresses me so much more, Bill, than the people that are like, can you come in and maybe we can be in your next book? Can you bring the guys from Ghost Hunters? Do you know Jason and Grant? Can you bring them in? Maybe we can talk about a book deal. There's two ends of the spectrum. There is money to be made. Right. And it's important to mention that reputable teams Boulder County Paranormal is one of them, will never take a cent from you. They'll never charge you. In fact, we've turned a couple of times now envelopes of money away. They will not take one red cent, because the minute you turn it into a business, it's incumbent upon you to deliver a product, right? You have a customer, and so the customer wants you to validate, yes, your house is haunted. And I would say the majority of the time we say to people, I'm sorry, guys, we could not find anything abnormal about your house. There is nothing here that we could find.
And so let's take that, because I've been on your website, and in a minute I'm going to ask you to give everybody your website. So you go out there, and what is their reaction? Do they in turn call you? Are you the one lying, or are they the one imagining things? You know what I'm getting at? Or
yeah, so some people actually get pretty offended when you don't validate their worldview. They want to hear, yes, your house is haunted. They're looking for the relief of, you're not crazy. Stuff is going on that we can't explain. And I always call it the 7-Eleven theory, Bill. Ambulances, at least in the system I work in, we post at 7-Elevens, right? And there's a good reason for that. Number one, it's open 24 hours a day, and when you need to go pee, there's a restroom. Number two, the fuel of emergency medicine in the U.S. is caffeine. Whether it's Mountain Dew or it's a can of Monster or Rockstar to get you through the night. Now, in all my years of medicine, I never once saw a 7-Eleven get stuck up. Nobody ever walked in with a gun and robbed one, right? But it happens. We know it happens. I just didn't happen to be at the right one on the right time to see it happen. And it's the same with the paranormal. If I spend 24 hours or a weekend or even a week in a location and I don't record something paranormal, that tells you nothing occurred that week. It doesn't mean the other 51 weeks of the year you don't have a haunted location. We're still not sure why people see ghosts. We're not sure of the mechanisms through which that happens. It's one of the big debates in our field right now, But folks want us to come in and give them the stamp, sometimes at least, not all of them. Some of them do welcome an honest investigation, and they're kind of relieved to hear that they're not in a haunted house. But so many of them want us to come in and rubber stamp them. Yep, it's a verified haunted house, and it just isn't the case most of the time.
And do you think that's for the stigma of saying they have a haunted house? What's the ratio between, how can I say, the honest person? I don't mean that they're dishonest, but the honest person who calls you for you to come in and investigate, and someone who just wants to your point earlier of just being on a show or being talked about. Is there a big, because you stay quite busy doing this.
We do, and I think that human beings are very good at self-delusion. All of us, every single one of us, me included. To an extent, we're all experts at seeing what we want to see, aren't we? I look in the mirror and I see a guy that weighs about 50 pounds less than I actually do. All the time.
I need that mirror.
So I think that most folks don't set out to deceive at all, least of all themselves. But with the prevalence of TV shows out there right now, and you look at some of the evidence, in quotation marks, evidence on those shows, and it really is very thin indeed. And yet people are willing to say, yes, the creaky floorboards, yes, the cold draft. Never mind that it's December in Colorado and you don't have any insulation on your windows. The icy cold draft, it's evidence of spiritual activity, right?
Right.
And I think people that want to be haunted find that they are a great deal more. That being said, though, there are plenty of those genuine cases in which we cannot explain the activity that we're called in to investigate.
How much time would you put into, to your point earlier, where if you're there that week, there may not be any activity? If you have a notion that you're in the right place and just need to be there longer, I guess my question is, what's the longest amount of time you've spent on a location or returned how many times to kind of prove the theory?
Well, because we all have jobs, it's a question of repeat visits, and the best answer to your question involves the end of next month. On Halloween, we're moving in to a haunted hospital, which is now a Halloween haunted house just outside Salt Lake City. It's called Asylum 49, and we are going to be there around the clock for a week. And it's a place that's so paranormally active, according to obviously to the owners, but also the staff and the volunteers who work there and their customers, that we're going there when the energies, should be the highest at any point throughout the year. We start on Halloween night, and we're going to go in around the clock. which is a luxury we usually don't have.
And you're going to spend a solid
Week
there.
We are going to move in. So 24 hours a day, we're going to work in shifts. The nice thing is the place has security cameras wired up already, and we'll be adding to that to cover more of the rooms. So in an ideal world, almost nobody does this, quote unquote, for a living. Again, money shouldn't change hands for paranormal investigation. Right. But when Amazon calls me, hey, Amazon, when you call Bill, call me, right?
Yes.
Once that's done. But if I were independently wealthy, I would rather like the idea of getting a place for a flat year, and staffing it in shifts, 24/7, 365 days, wire up every room for temperature, for sound, for video, for thermal, and then the problem with that is, of course, then you need thousands of man hours to actually go through the data and see what's anomalous.
Right.
But that's part of the problem as to why we don't have quite as much convincing evidence as we would like in this field. Nobody has the continuous months to devote to investigating this kind of phenomenon, least of all scientists.
The bigger thing for me, Richard, is what the heck would happen if you found what you were looking for?
Well, that's the question. That's the holy grail, isn't it? I write about that in novels because I don't know that it will ever happen in real life, so I put that in some of my fiction. But honestly, it would change the world as we know it. If we absolutely knew for sure that human consciousness survived death, I mean, just think about that for a minute. How would the world be different? How much of our anxiety, our insecurity would melt away, but also how much of the stuff we think is so important would become meaningless?
Right.
Suddenly that mortgage looks like less of a big deal, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I'd say so. That as you were talking, I'm sitting there going, and I never thought about it until listening to you talk about it, is the time, that day when it all comes and you go, because I'm running.
Well, but intellectual honesty, Bill, I've also got to consider. I've also got to consider the converse. What if I and the people that are similar to me, what if we're dead wrong and we're all wasting our time? The nice thing is we're all going to find out one day or the other, right? When we have the big one, either there'll be nothing or we'll go on to something and we'll know all the answers, or at least we'll know at least the next step of the answers. But it is entirely possible that we are wrong. And it's vital that anybody who investigates these claims is open to that possibility. Maybe we're all chasing patterns in something that isn't there. I don't think so, or I wouldn't have spent 2 decades of my life pursuing it. But to be intellectually honest, you've got to be open to the possibility, don't you?
Now, do you talk about that in your books as well? I mean, let's talk about your books now, because I know you're getting ready for a few book signings coming up, and so let's talk about that book. Do you express all this in your books as well? Are you open to that? And
I think in the books, I definitely talk about situations in which I've been in haunted places or supposedly haunted places and have found nothing or have found satisfactory explanations. It remains to see how well that's going to sell, because honestly, sensationalism sells. But I wanted to have people alongside me on those cases, and the big benefit of reading about this in a book is going to be the fact that I can cut out most of the boring stuff for the reader. You don't have to spend hours upon hours sitting there in the dark waiting for something to happen, and nothing does. So I do definitely talk about some natural explanations we found. But I think readers are mostly interested in hearing about genuinely anomalous activity, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Bill, can I ask you a favor really quickly? I have the most adorable dog in the world. Can you give me 10 seconds to let her out because she's whining at her dad?
Absolutely. Please take care of it.
One moment, sir. I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. So while Richard's doing that, I mean, everybody who's catching up or just tuning into this, I'm with Richard Estep, and we're talking about the paranormal. And the more Richard's talking about this, it's piquing my interest. So, welcome back. I'm catching everybody up who's going to be watching this and listening to it. So I don't think, and I always say I forget the fans on iTunes, and they couldn't see my face while you were talking, and my eyes are getting a little bigger because now I got to be honest, I'm looking at it differently. But I'm so fascinated by your by your presentation of this could not, it either is or isn't. You're not, I guess, have you had, let me cut to the chase, and I do this a lot. So if you had an opportunity, has anybody approached you for a series or a TV show? Because you're very interesting.
I've always wanted to do one, but again, I suspect it wouldn't be popular for the same reason. I'm not going to name names or name shows, but let's put it like this. Ratings are king. You know this, being in the media.
Yes.
And I would say that when 90% of what you do is dull, that's not an easy sell. So there are some shows out there where in the earlier seasons of those shows, they were very open about the fact that they found places that weren't haunted at all. And then as the show started to get more popular and started to build, suddenly every week there is ghostly activity everywhere they go, which I find a little bit of a stretch. Do you ever watch a TV show called Chicago Fire? Have you seen that show?
My wife is a huge Chicago Fire.
I can't think why.
I've never seen it.
I'm kidding.
I think because you're an EMT, so I'd like to say it's because you guys save lives, but I think.
Well, and I'm also a volunteer firefighter, and so what people don't really know, at least I work for a fairly small combination department out here in Boulder, Colorado, Boulder Rural. Shout to everybody on the department. We run maybe 1,000 calls a year or so, I think. And so a lot of what we do, we train, we do chores, we educate. Actually running truly big fires is a very minimal part of our job. So if you decided to come make a fire show about us, it's not going to be very popular. You'll see a lot more cleaning than you do fire suppression and training, of course, if you see my point. And again, if you do a Chicago Fire, what they do on that show, or the movie Backdraft or Ladder 49, is they take about a year's worth of the busy department stuff and they cram it into 45 minutes and throw in some drama.
Right.
And then they do that 26 episodes a season. Again, you couldn't do that really with an ethical, with a ghost hunting show about someone who takes the approach my team does, because I don't think it's a lot of fun for us to find rational explanations for this kind of stuff. It would be like Mythbusters for ghost hunting. Although the more I say it, the more I like the idea.
Yeah, now that you're saying it out loud, right? It sounds kind of appealing. So
yeah, but it's not a show I can see being popular. What do you think?
I agree with you, because I've seen a couple of them, and like I said, I've gone through a few, and they started out with, well, there's nothing, and then all of a sudden, everywhere they go, that's well, and it speaks to my point, doesn't it, Bill? That once you introduce money in the form of ratings or customers, you got to deliver consistently, or you're done. So yeah, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. No
disrespect to the folks on those shows. I'm not questioning their integrity, but I'm just saying I think there is a link that when you have paying customers, it's incumbent upon you to deliver a product that those customers want, and that product is rarely people like me sitting around finding drafts because of insulation or floorboards that are creaky because they're old and worn. They want specters and headless horsemen.
Right. Now, your team, how many people are on your team?
The number fluctuates. Right now, we're at around 10. And it's a fairly diverse skill set.
All 10, to your point, all have jobs. Mm-hmm. And they all volunteer their time, and are they all, do you have people who volunteer who are like, I would volunteer strictly because after this conversation, I'd be interested to go on one.
Sure.
How long do you have team members that are with you for a long time, or do you have always?
Yeah, we do a lot of longevity. It's surprising how many people I think say, "Hey, I'd love to come with you guys for a night," and that really sounds like paranormal tourism to me.
Right.
Especially when we're invited into people's homes, which is a real privilege. If people are living in fear, we make those our priority help cases. And I don't want to take somebody along who doesn't have experience. Right. So we tend to mentor new investigators, and we look for what skills they bring to the table. So, for example, we have an electronic engineer named Miranda. Her degree is in electronic engineering, so she's excellent with those electrical issues. We have a former telecom engineer that is great with the telecommunication stuff. Of course, I'm a paramedic, so I understand the medical aspects, and being a volunteer firefighter, the building construction, which is equally important.
Right.
But we also have creative folks. We have a web designer who is also an investigator, and it's amazing what skills people have, Bill. every so often we'll get an email from someone who says, I'd like to join your team, but I don't have a professional skill set. All I am is a stay-at-home mom. And my answer is, number one, nobody is just a stay-at-home mom. That's a full-time job if you're doing it well. And number two, there's nothing I can teach you about organization and logistics if you're a mom. Because you are the expert and in getting stuff done and getting the kids off to school. So it's amazing what's a transferable skill set for us. We're looking for motivated, open-minded individuals.
So I'm interested because I'm going to get to I want to get to Code Green in a minute.
Oh, thanks.
But I want to and we talked about you were just in Atlanta, and so you're an author, you're an EMT,
paramedic.
Which is different, right?
So just to be clear, EMTs are excellent at what they do. They are basic life support providers. Paramedics are EMTs who have stepped up a level to become advanced life support providers.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So what came first? What have you been doing longer?
Oh, paranormal research for sure.
And then how did being a paramedic come into the mix?
Well, I came to the US in 1999,
right.
And I was working in IT. That was my profession. Already interested in the paranormal, but I'd stopped investigating when I relocated to come work for a computer company. And I'm a former what's called territorial army. It's like the National Guard or Army Reserve in the US. Soldier, and I missed the camaraderie and I missed the service, and I was looking for that. So I was looking at going to the National Guard here in the States, and then 9/11 happened. And I was so impressed with the behavior of the FDNY and the other responders too. But I was like, I want to go do that. I want to go serve the community in that way. Went to my local firehouse, signed up to be a volunteer firefighter, and they require, as most departments do, that you become an EMT, which they very graciously paid for. And so I got the medical bug. I soon realized how much more emergency medical work fire departments tend to do than they do fire and rescue.
Right.
So I got the bug and I started climbing the ladder, no pun intended, ultimately becoming a paramedic.
And then that's fascinating. And thank you for that. My brother's went through, he was a fireman and now he's a state inspector, and he's been with the department for 28 years or whatever it is. And I know what, excuse me, I know what everybody goes through on a daily basis. And you mentioned I guess we celebrated 9/11 and just this past month. And so thank you for that. A bigger thank you for coming to this country. You know what I mean? With your direction, and then seeing what happened, and for that to affects me. That's huge. That's more important to me than anything else we're going to talk about. So
well, and if I may say, Bill, without getting too heavy or anything, but America has been very good to me. All I brought with me really, I think the most important thing was a strong work ethic. But this is a country that still is built on volunteerism and community service. And we all look at our Facebook feeds, we all look at the news, we all get down. What is the world coming to? People are horrible, and yet they're not when you look. Yeah. Because so many of the ladies and gentlemen I work with are giving up their time to serve. And you can see it in churches, you can see it in 1,001 volunteer organizations, what a strong country this is. And it is still full of good people looking out for their fellow man. So, Americans have a lot to be proud of, and we forget that sometimes, don't we?
We do forget it, and that's awesome. And that's how I got started in this side of the media after 28 years of wrestling. I also I have the YouTube channel, and it's the Bill DeMott Experience, and that's what I do. I go out and meet those people that you're just talking about, because we do forget. We do forget after watching the news and everything that's going on that this ain't a bad place to hang your hat. And that I appreciate you saying that, and that's awesome. And that kind of leads me to the Code Green campaign.
Thanks for mentioning that. So when I learned that I got my first book contract, the money in publishing at my level at least isn't great, but I was determined that I wanted to make a contribution to something I believed with. So each of my nonfiction books, I donate 10% to a charity I believe in. The Code
every
Green,
book.
Of the traditionally published, I self-publish novels,
Right.
and the sales on those would maybe buy you a cup of coffee right now. So
Oh, I got
that's
you.
not
I
a
got
great
you.
amount, but um, when it comes down to the stuff that has a traditional publisher, which is 3 books right now, 10% of the royalties I get from each one will go to a different charity.
That's awesome.
So in one, it's the Longmont Humane Society. In the forthcoming World's Most Haunted Hospitals, it's going to be the St. Baldrick's Pediatric Cancer Foundation. And for my current book, which is In Search of the Paranormal, it's the Code Green Foundation. So this was started because there is a silent epidemic among first responders here in the US and throughout the Western world, because we get the folks at the campaign hear from paramedics, firefighters, police officers, and dispatchers who are so often forgotten.
Right.
The fourth arm of the emergency service, the dispatcher, they're critical. The angels on our shoulders. And we are killing ourselves in record numbers. We have mental health issues, PTSD, such as you would not believe. And it seems now, the worst thing that happens to me all the time these days, Bill, is when my Facebook wall, I see an image, all my friends in the profession, their profile picture changes and it becomes a sea of badges with the black stripe across, which means we've got either a fallen officer or somebody has taken their own life, and it's becoming, it's out of control. So the Code Green campaign is a charitable organization that attempts to get not only awareness and recognition of those issues, but to get help and resources to those responders that most need it before it's too late. They do great work.
So for everybody on iTunes who's listening now, Richard, do you have a website for that where everybody can go? Can you tell us the website?
And I need to get the exact link or URL, and I will do that right now if you can give me just a second.
Yeah,
I
please,
want to make
go
sure
ahead
we have the
and
correct one.
So
it's linked to from my website, richardestep.net, but I'd like to get you the exact URL for Code Green.
Okay, so we can go to richardestep.net.
richardestep.net, yeah, and it's linked to from there.
That's your website, and we can get the link because that's a family. I have a family of police officers and firemen, and my young nephew is a dispatcher now in the police department. And when I read through the Code Green campaign, I'm just amazed at your dedication to this, because I say this to I love to say this to everybody I get a chance to have a serious conversation with. You have enough going on, and you find, I don't think you find that time. You make the time for these things. And what an amazing story. You come to America, you have a skill set, and now you challenge yourself, and your skill set is so much bigger. And I think you put one over on me, because I wanted to talk about the paranormal, and now I'm so intrigued with you on such a more personal level. And I'm like, I feel I'm proud right now. I feel very proud about this interview, and I love the fact of what you're doing. And you're an author, and you're a military man.
Well, I was just in the reserve, so nothing major, certainly nothing like this recent generation has gone through with our 2 wars in the Middle East. My very limited service was a cakewalk compared to that. But one thing, and I appreciate what you say, Bill, but one thing I would love to point out is that I am by no means unique. And in fact, if you walk into the average volunteer firehouse in America, or go to a community college EMT classroom like the one I teach in, and it's full of people of all ages. I've seen 55-year-old EMT students come through my class that wanted to volunteer and serve. They're not trying to make a living. They're trying to do better things in their community. This country is full of people that are taking ownership of things, that are taking the ball and running with it. It's a shame we don't hear about it that much, because doom and gloom is
we
news.
need to hear more.
But yeah, go to your local volunteer firehouse and go stick your head in the door, say hi, say thanks to the guys there, and get their stories. And I'm not remotely unique. There are well over 1 million volunteer firefighters in this country.
Well, a little unique, because now I'm going to walk in, because I guarantee I have a good friend of mine who works right down the road from my house that I get the luxury of working out of now, and he works at the firehouse, and I guarantee I don't have one paranormal guy in there. So my question is, I'm going to bring it back to that, is that what happens to your students, because you teach as well. So what do you ever bring that into the conversation? And then what's the reaction from the students or everybody who comes to learn medical, and all of a sudden you break out with the paranormal?
I generally don't bring it into the classroom at all because I don't think it has a. There are some things that just don't have a place in the medical classroom, and
Right.
belief is one of them. I don't like to bring in religion either. I'm an agnostic, but that has no relevance. I think we have to respect it. There are cultural and belief-based differences, but the closest we get, I think, is when we talk about resuscitation, and what constitutes attempting to bring a person back from the dead. But I don't go into the ghosts and the supernatural kind of stuff. Again, it doesn't really have a place in the classroom. We'll talk about it around the table, informally at one of my jobs quite a lot. But
I think there's your show right there, the paranormal EMT. You and I are gonna talk after this, and we're gonna Amazon, call us. What is it? Netflix, whatever.
my friend, and I have to credit him by name. My friend Glenn Harding had a better idea, and his concept was ghost hunting drunk, and I rather like that idea too.
Which leads me back to the hotel at the beginning of the story.
Yeah,
we couldn't have found anything that night, but we heard a few noises. I think that's a TV series right there.
I wonder if it's the same hotel. This isn't a ghost story, but you'll probably, I don't know if you'll get a kick out of this or not, but my wife for many years, and still does, but had a crush on Rowdy Roddy Piper, and we ran into him at Comic-Con. Lovely man.
Yes.
And so she got a picture with him and all that kind of stuff, and I shook his hand. He said, "Where are you from?" And I told him I was from the UK, and immediately he's like, "Let me tell you about the time I was drunk and naked in a hotel corridor in Manchester, England." So American wrestlers always having odd experiences in hotels in England, it seems.
And I think we bring
chap.
upon ourselves too. And he,
Yeah.
bless his heart, he just passed away not too long ago. But he was white as a ghost, so it probably would have played into the fact.
He got locked out of his room naked, or so he told me, and had a fun time explaining that.
That seems to happen a lot when we go over there. Well, Richard, I have to tell you, I'm so happy we had a chance to talk, and I want everyone to go to your website and check out Code Green. And I'm going to take this opportunity to say, please send me one of your latest book, because I'd love to read it. I'd love to catch up with you and
Sure.
touch base from time to time, because you have my interest now so much more than just the paranormal. I love your story. I'm going to talk to my good buddy Steve, and as we do the Bill DeMott Experience and we go to meet new people, I think you and I would have a great experience to share with the world. So I just first and foremost, thank you for everything you're doing with the firefighters and the paramedics and everything. And good luck with it. I want to see proof, and I think you're the guy to find it. But I love your approach. I love the honest approach of, you just have to be there at the right time. And I think it's just interesting. Not so much interesting as those big Star Wars heads behind you.
Nothing is more interesting than Star Wars. That's the first rule.
So you have to be excited about what's going on with the new movie.
I am so stoked for Star Wars Episode 7. It is unreal. I just got this weekend, and come look me up on Facebook and enjoy the pictures. I just got a Millennium Falcon flying drone, which I'm using to terrify my cats right now.
No.
It is awesome.
And so you talked about your cats. So, I just want you to know I've done my homework on you. And not only with everything else, you're teaching, you're a firefighter, you're a paramedic, you're an author, you go to these shows, you have your
Sure. work,
and you rescue animals.
Well, we adopt way more rescue pets than our HOA allows. So, if the HOA is watching, but
they're just visiting.
Yeah. And I was never a cat person, but I married the crazy cat lady. My wife rescued so many cats. She moved from Austin, Texas to Colorado. They're all black cats, and we rescue dogs also. So right now it's one dog and 5 cats.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a very cramped bed I sleep in.
I bet. And that's why everything's up on a shelf, because the cats can get to it.
Oh, they sure can. These guys are ninjas, let me tell you.
Well, what's next for you? Where's your next book signing? Let's tell everybody where you're going.
The next major one, I think, is going to be at the Erie Public Library later in October. I put the exact dates and locations on richardestep.net so anyone can see my calendar. And I love to meet people that are into this. Come say hi, shoot me an email online also. I answer all my emails personally, and I love to hear ghost stories or hear people's opinions and just stay in touch. But yeah, I have a full calendar out there on the webpage.
That's awesome. Well, I promise you that when and if I get out to the Boulder area, I'm going to look you up, and I'd love to just go sit down with you somewhere and talk some more, because this has been awesome.
Yeah, you holler. We'll just make sure it's not in the lobby of a hotel room, huh? Of the hotel, I should say. We'll make sure we get a more interesting venue that we're both a little scared to go into.
You got it. I'll do it for sure.
Sounds great.
Richard, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bill.
Everybody go to richardestop.net for all the information. Check him out on what's your Facebook?
Richard Estep author on Facebook. So if you just punch in Richard Estep author, EMT, paramedic, firefighter, teacher, and the founder of the Boulder County Paranormal Research Society. You have a full plate, my friend. I do, but that's life, isn't it? And let's make the most of it while we have it.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you, man, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It was good talking to you.
Thank you, Richard. We'll talk again soon.
Let's do that.
You got it.
Take care, Bill.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye.
All right, everybody. That I'll tell you what. I have a whole different approach towards this now. Richard's a great guy. I mean, forget the service alone, but I thought we were coming in to talk about the paranormal, and just a fantastic interview. So like I always say, this is Bill DeMott. This is the Bill DeMott Experience. Do what you say what you mean what you do, and check him out. richardestop.net. Go to his website, check him out, and that's it for this one. And we'll get back to you. This is Bill DeMott. I'm out.
Visit VinceRussoBrand.com to sign up for exclusive VIP content. You get over 20 new video shows monthly, including Vixens Who Rule and The Swerve, where Vince Russo interviews stars in wrestling and beyond. Listen to Vince and Jeff Lane discuss weekly news and rumor and review Attitude Era Raws. Also, watch the cult hit Bucket Full of Chicken Necks. Go to VinceRussoBrand.com and click the red subscribe button to join now.